The following episode of the Outtakes contains major spoilers for the following movies: Star Wars: The Last Jedi, Baby Driver, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Hello everybody, and welcome to the first ever addition to the Outtakes podcast. This is a podcast all about talking about film, television, be it animated or live action. Maybe occasionally we'll talk about video games and stuff like that too. I am your co-host, Thomas van Kampen.
I'm your other co-host, Diego.
You want to give your full name?
Diego Arciniega.
Alright, perfect. So, let's start this off by just talking about what we do and how we got involved in this whole thing. So, for starters, I'm an animator. I've been doing it for over 3 years now, and you can check out my stuff I put up online on my YouTube channel, Tombo Cartoons. You can also check out my portfolio at www.thomasjvankampen.wix.com/tjvk. Diego, do you have anything you want to plug?
I don't really have much to plug. I mean, I'm an actor. You might see my things around, but I'm mostly a theater actor.
Yeah,
so we'll see. I am trying lots of different things, though, so who knows? Yeah, I don't really have anything to plug at this moment.
What are some of the movies you've been in?
I don't... I haven't really been in any movies.
That's not true. I saw you at a movie at like the Edmonton Short Film Festival.
That was like one thing I did as like oh, I have a little bit of free time and they need my help. That was not like a thing I was really seeking out per se as much.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, because most of the time I'm spending is mostly theater. Like I just finished wrapping up Antigone, which was really, really fun. And
cool.
I'm in a play at the Newarks Festival. I don't know if anyone here will know that, but the Newarks Festival happens at the University of Alberta. I'm in a play called Sin Caves, so yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, that'll be great. And I've known Diego since high school. He's a very talented guy, very physical, very good delivery in his voice. He pulls off like the action comedy stuff like very effectively. And fun fact for anybody who follows my YouTube channel, in the cartoon, The Peacock Episode 2, This Bird Flies Solo, Diego plays the voice of the Hooded Thief, and he did an excellent job on that, so thank you for that, Diego.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun.
Yeah, so this podcast, like I said before, is supposed to be kind of all about film and television and that. I thought it would be a fun thing to do with Diego because we chat quite a bit about film and stuff on Facebook, and the reason I wanted to talk about it with Diego in particular is because, to be perfectly honest with you, Diego, I have a lot of film buff friends, right? Like, I have people I go to see movies with all the time, but in all honesty, I feel like a lot of them don't talk as in-depth about the process of filmmaking as you do. I feel like you're one of the few people who talk about it at the same, like, not to sound like self-righteous or too pretentious. I feel like you're one of the guys who like goes as in-depth on film as I do, because like our conversations, like you convince me to so many different like opinions about movies that I've never considered before, and which is saying a lot because I'm a very opinionated ass. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, no problem. I mean, yeah, it's funny because I say I'm a big theater actor, but at the same time I've been a lover of film all my life, and it's something that I've always been really invested in. I used to study film. I was in some film study courses. I did a few of those, and those really opened my mind to more things. And yeah, I watch a lot of films, so I always like to see all the different angles, and I also really like watching a lot of behind the scenes documentaries and things like that. So,
oh yeah, I'm exactly the same way. I always put on that kind of stuff in the background whenever I'm working on anything. And that our mutual love of film and television is something we really bonded over in high school, because we went to drama class together, and I think the fact that you're an actor now and I'm an animator says something about like which one of us benefited from that class way more. You know, but it was a lot of fun. We did a lot of stuff together. We made each other laugh, and it was pretty good. I think about like high school like all the damn time.
Oh yeah, yeah, good memories.
So I figured that this episode would be all about talking about 2017, because 2018 is just a couple of days away. 2017 is wrapping up, and it's been definitely an interesting year, especially on the entertainment side of things. There's been tons of notable movies that have been coming out,
Yep.
a lot of which that both me and Diego have seen and thought about. I thought I'd start off this podcast by talking about Star Wars: The Last Jedi, because it came out rather recently, and fun fact, me and Diego were just talking about it today.
Yes, we were.
Yeah. What are your general thoughts on The Last Jedi, Diego?
So I've seen it 3 times now. I almost wanted to see it a 4th time. I love this movie. It has problems, some definitely very serious problems that I totally get why certain people don't like the movie, and I'm sad, disappointed and sad that there are some people that hate the movie and think that it's a genuinely horrible film. You know, it's fine if they have those opinions. I'm just disappointed by it. Because even with some of its problems, I would never say it's a bad film. And yeah, and I remember the first time I viewed it, I was a little stunned. I didn't really know what to think. There were a lot of thoughts running through my mind, you know, some really good, some really bad, and I was like, I don't know, how do I gather my thoughts here, because this was so different in a lot of ways, and familiar at the same time. And then I saw it a second time, and saw it a third time, and I also started reading up on material and articles and all these different things, and it really grew on me more and more the more I watched it, and the more I was like, oh, I get it. I get what this movie was trying to accomplish. That being said, there are still things, even on repeat viewings, that I didn't like, that I don't know if we'll get into spoilers or anything like that. But
if we do go into spoilers, we should probably put like a brief warning before we go into it. Yeah.
So currently non-spoilery. Yeah, again, I loved it. I think it was really well filmed, especially. Like, I thought there were so many, like, wallpaper moments. Like, easily, like, I was like, that's a shot that's like a wallpaper right there. That's so beautiful. And, yeah, so cinematography I thought was done really well, and effects was done really well. Story, of course, everyone has brought up the pacing issues and things like that, and I agree. It's not really that well done compared to other films in the franchise. But I don't know, I still just really enjoyed it for most of the way through, and I really liked the strong, bold choices that they made in this film.
Yeah. I actually 100% agree with that last point you made, and I love what you just said. This film is very ambitious in that it goes really far in changing up the Star Wars formula. For one thing, it has this kind of narrative structure that I noticed where it makes you think that one thing is going to happen. That's a very like Star Wars kind of sentiment. It's something that you could definitely see in like an 80s movie, in like one of the original movies. But then it kind of goes in a completely different direction, and that kind of bold storytelling I have to give kudos to, because it constantly kept me guessing. And I also appreciate the movie's theme of, like, out with the old, in with the new. You know what I mean? Because, like, there's an ongoing theme in the movie, I felt, about, the old ways aren't necessarily perfect, and, you know, and it kind of felt like the movie, after the heels of The Force Awakens, which was, you know, just a constant love letter nostalgia ride of like, hey, remember this thing from Star Wars? Remember that thing? Oh man, Star Wars was great, am I right?
And Rogue One was a similar thing, except with not as great characters, in my opinion. And I know I'm going to get some hate for that, but anyway.
No, I
That's
agree
one.
with you on that one. I'll defend you. Except for the blind Jedi, he kicks ass.
Chirrut is amazing. I love that character, and so is K2. But the other characters, I was like, okay.
But anyway, yeah. So like coming off of the heels of those movies that tried so hard to like pander to the Star Wars demographic by bringing up all those things that they love, I appreciate this movie's ambition to be like, all right, we had our fun, guys. We enjoyed all the little references and all the little cameos, but now it's time to tell our own story. And again, not to go into too much spoilery territory, but the way that they kind of naturally progress beyond the old tropes of the original films, I thought was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Granted, I feel like this movie's too ambitious for its own good at times. Not in a way that ruins the whole experience for me. If anything, the bad choices in this movie are fucking hilarious to me. I was constantly laughing out loud in the theater.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that this kind of ambition should have been saved now that they announced that Rian Johnson's writing his own new Star Wars trilogy for the future? Do you think this kind of ambition should have been saved for that, and they should have went more traditionally with this trilogy? Because I know some people think that way.
I don't think so. I think like just to give you a little bit of history about like my relationship with Star Wars. I like the series a lot, and I appreciate what it did for cinema and all these things. But the truth is, I'm a very casual fan of Star Wars, and that's gonna be the divide between you and me, I think, because I know how much of a fan you are of Star Wars. Like, if I'm not mistaken, this is like your favorite movie series ever, right?
Well, yeah, I'd say one of my favorite, if not my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I'm a more casual fan, and like I appreciate like all the little references and stuff like that, and I gush in my seat too. But like at the same time, I feel like my position gives me more of an appetite for newer things.
Yeah.
Because I don't have quite as much an attachment to older properties, that makes me more appreciative and more flexible with changes, and that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah, to answer your question, I don't want to wait to get more ambitious. I want to see where they're going. I want them to flex their creative chops a little bit more, because for better or worse, I think like giving as much creative power as possible is ultimately a good thing, because they create mistakes that you can learn from, whereas if a movie is very obviously like executive producer driven, the problem with that is there's nothing to learn there. All that you can take from that is some people have more power than you, no matter how wrong it seems, and that just kind of puts like a bad feeling in my heart. I didn't know how else to phrase that.
No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, no, I agree. And one other question is, because I've also heard this from other people. What do you, without going into spoilers, what did you think of the character Rose in The Last Jedi? Her character.
I thought she was cute.
I liked her character, even though I understand some people's criticisms of her character. I thought she was fun.
I thought she was alright too, and there was an entire section of the movie involving her and Finn that a lot of people really didn't like, and I quite disagree on that. But I guess in order to talk about
I
that
agree
kind of
that
thing,
it kind of pauses the movie. It presents a problem with the pacing of the film. Yeah. But I also agree with you in the sense that I actually do like that scene, despite the fact that it causes a problem with the pacing in the film.
We're not going to go much farther without going into spoiler territory, so I'm going to put up a warning right now. For anybody listening, if you have not seen The Last Jedi yet, now is the time to pause, go see it, and then come back, because we're going to start going into spoiler territory. So, yeah.
Skip ahead,
Diego, sorry to cut you off. Did you have a thought that you were going with?
No, it's fine. No, yeah, so the casino part, the whole casino scene, for me, I agree with people that could have been... I wouldn't want it to be cut, but I definitely think there are parts that could have been shorter and more tight, and you could have made that just the whole journey not feel like 40 minutes of the movie, and maybe make it like 15 minutes and then keep going. Because yeah, it did feel, especially for a movie this long. This is the longest Star Wars movie. I did feel that there are certain things there. Even though I love the environment of the casino. I think that's really, really cool. And I also really like the space horses. I also think those are cool. So DJ was also kind of an interesting character. His real name being Don't Join, apparently. DJ means
Really?
Don't Join. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's what the Star Wars Visual Dictionary tells me is DJ means Don't Join. That's which makes sense to his character. I mean, probably not his real name, but that's what that means.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I understand. I get the criticisms towards that part because, it's understandable. Some people are not. So people want more of the other things, especially with the Rey and Luke and Kylo stuff being so good. I always wanted to come back to that.
Yeah, I do understand, like, why people have such a problem with the pacing of the casino theme and how, like, it's a huge chunk of the movie that's not really going to resonate with everyone. But honestly, I loved it because, for one thing, like you just said, I love the casino environment. For one thing, it's an environment we've never seen in Star Wars. Like, going into it, like, hearing about how Finn and Rose talking about how they have to go to this place in order to do this thing, I was kind of worried that it would be a repeat of the cantina, just like the place in The Force Awakens was, where it was like, all right, it's more of like a cameo or a reference than an actual environment.
And the thing with that one, too, is they didn't even get John Williams to do the music for that Takodana, rehash cantina. At least with this one, they were like, yeah, no, we'll get John Williams to do a new Cantina song. And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. This is a great little... It's like a very big band, rich version of Cantina versus song, which is great.
Yeah, and as soon as I saw it, I was just like, all right, this is a new environment in Star Wars. It's recognizable enough as a casino that, it has enough, shorthand in it to make us realize that's exactly what the environment is supposed to be. But not only is it just a cool looking place, but it also expands the lore of the universe because it's an explanation as to where the First Order gets their weaponry, right? And it's and it gives us an explanation as to it gives us further detail as to why there's such a divide between the richer classes and the poorer classes, and why this new environment we're in is so evil in a way that Star Wars has never really touched upon before. So I really appreciated it for that reason. As far as DJ goes, I liked his addition. I thought it was neat to have a character who was purely driven by personal gain and didn't see anything about sides, which adds to the movie's overall theme of blurring the lines of good and evil. I think, one of the scenes that I think about a lot, actually, is the scene where Finn is pressuring DJ to give Rose her necklace back, and DJ talks about how these weapons dealers, they provide weapons for the First Order, but they also provide weapons for the Rebellion. So that kind of feeds the theme of, the Rebellion isn't straight and narrow, too. They actually also make ethically questionable decisions. And that one really stuck with me, for a series as Star Wars that's been so black and white about its morality for so long, this is a nice touch of blurring that line and making this otherwise black and white morality a lot more interesting, and it touches on a lot more kind of nuance like that. So I really appreciated it.
Yeah, I agree.
So that was one of my favorite scenes. As far as the overall length of the movie, I agree. It did drag on a little bit, but I don't think scenes like that impeded on it. I think random cuts Mark Hamill milking a space creature kind of took away from the time, because I remember watching that and I'm just like, okay, and then it cuts to the next thing and I was just like, what did that contribute?
Honestly, I kind of liked it just because of how cringy it was. I kind of was like, this is some good cringe comedy.
It's really funny, don't get me wrong, but it's also the most
it does come out of nowhere. Although it's not as out of nowhere, in my opinion, as the Leia scene. The Superman Leia. which
Oh
is
my god, dude!
so
Like
bad.
that scene gets funnier and funnier the more I think about it.
Oh,
I was
man.
just like, first of all, that shot of like Carrie Fisher like flying out into space because like her ship exploded.
Yeah.
At first, I thought this was going to be the ballsiest way of killing off Leia ever. After Carrie Fisher literally died the year prior, I thought in my seat I was like, "Holy shit! You guys aren't nuanced about that at all, are ya?"
They're like, nope, we gotta get rid of her now.
Yeah, it would be a lot less like. It would be a lot less off-putting if like Carrie Fisher was still alive, but because she died, it was just like, oh.
Shit, like that was fast.
And dude, like when she's flying around in space, a friend that I went with made like the most it's like the most dark and like kind of like upsetting thing ever, but it's also really funny. He said something like, "Do you think they filmed Carrie Fisher's dead body when they made that scene because like she's perfectly still gliding through the air?"
Oh my goodness.
I was just like, dude, that is so fucked up.
That's terrible. Like, and the thing is that it's just a very, like, I like the idea of Leia using the Force. I'm all down for it. It's just that the scene is just terribly executed. It should have been her maybe, like a lot of people said, she should have been maybe the thing happened and then she was maybe a foot away from the door. And so then she just has to quickly, like, maybe just, like, jump a little bit. But, like, she literally flew through the space. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. This is awful. That's one of the bad parts of that movie, I gotta say. Outside of the other part for me is the way they treated Phasma. Where I'm just like, oh man, come on.
Dude, Phasma, for all intents and purposes, is the Boba Fett of this new trilogy. She looks cool and she sells toys, but she does nothing.
But I don't want her to be that, especially since, like, I was planning on reading her book, right? They just released a new novel about Phasma, and I had heard about it and heard how amazingly badass they make her in that book, like, hearing the things that she does. And then, so I was like, okay, I'll read the book after I watch the movie. And then I saw the movie, and now I have no courage, no encouragement to read the book now, seeing what happened to Phasma. And I was like, come on, like I get it. Rian Johnson in an interview said that she's like the Kenny of Star Wars. That is an actual quote from the director, that Phasma is the Kenny of Star Wars, which I'm like, okay, that could be pretty funny if she comes back in episode 9 and it's just like, ha, I got you again. But like, still, I'm just like, man, she looks so badass. I just wish that they didn't pull a Boba Fett and make her not badass.
Yeah.
And the fight, initially the fight is like, oh yeah, this is cool, but then the way that he just, like, surprise attacks her, and then...
I laughed so goddamn hard when that happened. You have no idea. As soon as he came up and was like, "Sup, bitch," and then just slapped her away, I was laughing so hard. He didn't actually say that, by the way, but, you know.
Scum, rebel scum.
Oh, that was so corny. I loved it.
Yeah, there's some pretty cheesy lines. The not about it's not about fighting what you hate, it's saving what you love.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. And also, like, during the one scene where, like, Rey's flying the Millennium Falcon and, like, she's flying around and shit, and, like, it cuts to her being like, "Ooh, I like this," and, like, Finn says something like, "Oh, they didn't like that ship," and I was watching this and I was having, like, Phantom Menace flashbacks.
What?
Like, it was like that level of corniness where it was just like this weirdly, not really urban, but kind of like pseudo-urban lingo in my Star Wars movie where, like, other characters will have this really poignant, almost Shakespearean dialogue, and then somebody says shit like that.
Well, like, I don't know, there was some pretty great dialogue still, because even, like, Kylo's makes sense to me considering his, like, craziness, where he's like, blow that ship out of this, no, blow that piece of junk out of the sky, and I was just like, yes, this is great, I love this. And
I liked Kylo a lot more this time around, for sure.
Yeah, no, he was really great, and that Falcon scene as well was just like, I got chills as soon as the music played, because I was like, oh, yes, but yeah, and like I've talked about with you before, I really liked Luke in this movie. And yeah, I thought he was really great. And I liked in general how they kind of just really tried to put more focus on the new characters and on the new things in general. Like, tried to be killing. Obviously, the whole theme of the movies, another theme of the movie is killing the past, right? So I really like that they were really trying to be like, no, listen, Star Wars fans, this is a new trilogy. You got to get off your high horse, get off that like, no, I have to have my Luke, my Han, and my Leia. And I was like, no, you got to release those. You got to let these new characters now grow and let them be their own thing. That's why I love the reveal, since we're in spoilers, that Rey's parents were nobodies. I love that message. I love that, anybody can be this great person. They don't need to be from some sort of legacy.
Yeah, I kind of appreciated that too. Granted, like, in a way, it kind of, like, makes the foreshadowing in The Force Awakens ultimately void, because they're building up, like, a bigger backstory than that, and then it turns out to be nothing, but...
People make that out as like this huge thing in The Force Awakens, but I remember I watched The Force Awakens right before Last Jedi. It wasn't that big. It was mentioned, yes, I'll give them that, but it wasn't like the central thing of the movie or a huge part of it, in my opinion. It was just that everybody blew it out of proportions with the theories. Same with the Snoke theories, where everyone was like, "Oh, who is Snoke?" Where I was like, "Does it matter?"
Yeah, and like I was buying for a while that, like, maybe Kylo Ren and Rey were siblings, and I thought for a while that was the reason they were linked to the Force. Because, like, 'cause in the same way that, like, Leia and Luke can detect each other from time to time, like, Leia can predict when Luke is coming back or something like that. I thought it was going to be that kind of connection, and it turns out it was Snoke the whole time, which,
No.
Okay.
No.
But...
I really like how, again, with the whole legacy thing...
Hang on, it couldn't have been Snoke, because Rey Kylo at the end.
Yeah, I don't know how that works either. It is Snoke, but I don't know if I'd have to look in my... Maybe my visual dictionary explains it or something, but, like, for some reason, that happens. I don't know why that happens. Maybe some Force thing. I really liked also that Kylo is that sort of legacy figure, and that because he's Ben Solo, right? He is he's the last of the Skywalkers, and because Rey is this nothing, you have those two clashing figures, right? You have the grandson of Vader who believes he should be the next Vader. He is so jealous and wants all this power, and then you have someone who's nobody. And she earns where she is, right? She works for it. And by the way, anybody who's like, oh, how does she know how to feel the lightsaber? She has no real training. In my opinion, from all the people I've talked to who know fighting and combat, stage combat, and things like that, if you know how to wield a staff, which she's very, very competently knows how to be able to do, she should be able to know how to wield a lightsaber very well. It's not that hard. It's not that far of a difference. Everybody thinks it's like, no, they're completely different weapons. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure you can transfer your skills pretty well.
That also, said, it'd be pretty badass if she got a Darth Maul lightsaber.
Yo, that's what everybody's kind of like predicting is if she takes that crystal, because she still has the Kyber crystal, the Jedi crystal, and if she like put that with her staff and had it double bladed. I don't think they're gonna do it, but I was like, if they do, that'll be pretty amazing.
That'd be the hypest. Yeah, and I've heard this same kind of things where, like, people were talking about how Rey's learning too quickly. Like, she knows how to do all this stuff despite little to no Force training. And my counter argument to that is, she's built up as a prodigy. That's the whole point of being a prodigy, is that you do this stuff naturally. Otherwise, like, what's the point of referring to her as such? And furthermore, it beats the hell out of what previous Star Wars movies did, particularly the prequels, where they talk about how much of a prodigy Anakin is rather than really show it.
And even when you look back at Luke, in A New Hope, Luke didn't have any training, yet he was able to use the Force to guide those torpedoes through a tiny little hole, which is an insane feat, blowing up the Death Star. Like, when you think about it, like, that's a huge thing for him to be able to do with no training whatsoever, right? And even at the beginning of Empire, before he has any training, he's able to grab his lightsaber and defeat the Wampa. Like, it's possible to do things without any training, is what I'm trying to say. And she does get a little bit in this movie. Not a lot, but a little bit.
Yeah, she doesn't get training so much as, like, kind of cryptic messages about why Luke can't train her. And then...
She did steal the books, though. I don't know if you saw that. In the Falcon shot at the end, you see all the books next to Chewie. She
I
stole
didn't
the
see
books
that,
from
no.
the tree.
You'd think Yoda would know that when he frickin' blew that tree up.
Well, Yoda did know that because Yoda, upon my second and third viewing, Yoda says to Luke, nothing in there that Rey does not already possess. He says something like that. And I was like, oh, he wasn't,
bastards.
that was, yeah, he knew.
So, yeah, so he just decided to destroy the tree for no reason then?
No, I think he was making a point to Luke. And in the point where it's like, this is the end of the Jedi Order. Like, you gotta move on, kind of thing. Which I like, too, because, I mean, the Jedi Order has been just such a fuck up for so long.
And I do like, you brought up earlier how, like, Luke's whole dilemma is about how he doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of the Jedi Order, and that's justified because the Jedis were a bunch of fuck-ups. I do appreciate that a lot, but at the same time, we were talking about this before we started the podcast. I do kind of wish he sympathized more with Rey when she was talking about, like, reaching out to Kylo Ren because there's conflict within him. Like, she's basically saying word for word what he was saying about Darth Vader, and Darth Vader ended up turning good at the end. And
I think the difference, though, is that now Luke is sort of the father figure here and not the son figure. He's the one that taught Kylo. And so I don't know, I feel like there's just maybe a different dynamic there in terms of how he feels towards it, because this is someone he personally trained for probably, I don't know how many years, and, you know, he went through that conflict of possibly killing him, but then realizing no, but then it was too late, and so he believes... And this is also someone that he outright says it. He's given up with the Force, pretty much.
Yeah, I suppose so.
He's just a really beaten down man, and I understand some people's complaints with that, but I like it. I like the direction.
I guess, like, that is a different kind of relationship dynamic, but even so, like, I feel like not just for that, but in general, like, the fact that Darth Vader turned good in the end was kind of disregarded in this thing. And like, I make that point because there's also the thing about Kylo Ren where he's like, his whole motivation is that he wants to be just like his grandfather. He wants to finish what he started, and he wants to be as strong, as intimidating as Darth Vader was. But Darth Vader... Was he never told that Darth Vader killed Darth Sidious in the end, and how he redeemed himself by doing that and ending the kind of, like, totalitarian government that Kylo Ren got reborn?
Maybe he did know about it, but maybe he didn't see that as Darth Vader. Maybe he, like, heard a story otherwise where he didn't believe that it was true. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Luke taught him, and you'd think Luke would tell him about that part.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe that would be... Yeah, I don't have the answer to that question, honestly, but maybe they'll explain it in a book or something.
I don't kind of... I honestly, like, don't really buy that mentality of, like, oh, it's explained in the extended universe.
No, it shouldn't be. I'm not making an excuse. I don't think it should be, but I'm saying it probably will be.
All right.
Because that's what they do. I'm not saying it should be, though. I do agree there are certain things that should be explained in the movies.
Speaking of explaining, this was one of the bigger problems that I had with the movie in general. I kind of felt like it overly relied on contrivance and people behaving irrationally in order for big reveals to happen. So, like, Luke being hesitant to tell Rey about, like, why he won't train her in the Force. I give him some slack because, like, you know, you explained it very well, where he's, like, he's just constantly in his own mind being like, no, not again, not again. But, like, for everybody, every other thing that happens in this movie, where it's like, DJ needs the necklace from Rose, but won't explain that he just needs it to get past the encryption.
he's pretty slimy, though. I don't know if he would explain anything. He didn't tell them even also, like, the fact that he was going to betray them and everything, right? He's pretty, I don't know. I assumed that was just part of his, like, slimy character. But anyway,
there's also, like, General Holdo and how she could have avoided having a mutiny brought against her if she just explained why she was charging the escape pods. And there's also that, and it's like, the last straw for me was in the ending when Mark Hamill walks out to face Kylo Ren and his army, and Poe's looking out at him, and he's like, oh, I get it. This is a distraction. He's buying us time to escape. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, does nobody explain anything in this goddamn movie? Like, does nobody communicate with each other on what the plan is? Like, no wonder you guys are dying so fast. It's like...
Well, no, yeah, the Resistance is pretty, like, they're pretty bad at their jobs, I find. I'm not gonna disagree with you. And I think, but that kind of plays into the movie, I think, as well as a thing too. I don't think they did that by accident, or they were just like, let's try to write these guys smart and then write them dumb. I think there was a purpose to it, but I don't know what would be the best way to explain it.
Yeah.
I do agree in some ways that the Holdo thing definitely could have been handled better, at least, or at least could have been explained a bit more. Because while I don't mind the fact that there was that reveal and the fact that she didn't trust him, I thought that was fine. But I do agree with a lot of people in that they definitely should have maybe even if it was just like one or two, like one scene or something, where Holdo explains why he didn't tell him anything or something, you know. Or really what it should have been, though, is Admiral Akbar shouldn't have died, and it should have been Akbar instead of Holdo. Justice for Akbar.
Dude, you know what would have been so goddamn funny?
He got a hand wave. Anyway.
You know what would have been so goddamn funny in retrospect?
What?
What if instead of General Holdo sacrificing herself by, like, going through that ship in light speed, it was Admiral Akbar, and while he was doing it, he yelled, "Admiral Akbar!"
I would have loved that. That would have been so
funny.
Amazing. I would have loved that. Honestly, I think they should have done Akbar instead of Holdo, because I think that would have been... Because we have already automatically more of an attachment from Akbar, even if you just know the names. And so you immediately kind of grasp his character more, and so it would be a more meaningful death with the hyperdrive thing. Even though that, no matter who was piloting that shot was amazing. I thought the whole hyperdrive with the silence was
I read
awesome.
an article somewhere, I think it was a Newsarama article, about how apparently a lot of Star Wars viewers were confused about why it goes silent for a few seconds. And I'm just like, have you never seen
maybe
this
it's for
technique
dramatic
before?
effect?
Have you never watched a Scorsese movie? It's like... Sometimes complete silence is used to up the drama and up the impact of a certain thing. It doesn't have to be blisteringly loud. It can be used to, like, emphasize how much more dynamic the visual is, because it's all you're focusing on.
He uses the same silence at the beginning too of the movie, where the controller of the bomber is falling and she just misses grabbing it, and there's complete silence for like 2 seconds, or just like, oh, she missed. And then you see the hand grab the remote. Like, guys, just watch a few episodes of Every Frame a Painting, and you'll feel better afterwards. I promise.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, like, those were kind of my issues with the movies. I agree with you that it was very enjoyable, and I like the changes that it makes. I like how it's creating this landscape for itself in which it can make riskier choices, and it can kind of be its own identity now. I do think a lot of the choices that they make don't work necessarily, but not in a way that the prequels do, where it's just frustrating.
And the problem with the prequels is that they explained everything.
The other problem with the prequels is that
that was over explanation. I mean, yeah, but that was part of the boring, is that there was over-explanation. They had to explain everything, even to the point of explaining the Force, and nobody wanted that, right?
Whereas people have, like, the exact opposite problem with The Last Jedi. I've heard people like, oh, these new Force powers came out of nowhere, like Leia can survive space, that's never happened before, and Luke Skywalker can project himself, that's never happened before, and I'm just like... So, you were complaining in the prequels about how it's too explained, and now you don't like it when it's a complete mystery again. Like, make up your minds.
Yeah. Well, also, that's like some people trying to create their rules for the Force, which is just silly in my opinion. Because, like, nobody, when Return of the Jedi came out and Emperor started using Force lightning, nobody was like, oh, they never explained how Force lightning is able to work. Why can it just Force lightning all of a sudden happen? Like, nobody cared. It was just cool.
It's just cool, and that's all it really has to be, honestly. Yeah, that's pretty well the gist of it. There are other things I could talk about, like, just silly things, honestly, like silly observations I could make, like, that shirtless Kylo Ren shot was pretty infamous for a while. It's been memeing pretty hard. When that came on, like, first of all, I didn't even know that was... What's the guy's name, the actor?
Adam Driver?
Yeah. At first, I didn't even know that was his real body. I thought that was, like, really bad CGI, and, like, I thought that they did that to him because he's actually, like, a really scrawny person or something. But no, apparently that's actually how he's built, and I'm just like, oh, weird.
Well, he was a Marine, wasn't he, before he was an actor? I'm pretty sure.
I don't know anything about the guy.
Pretty sure he was a Marine, so he was in the military beforehand, so who knows?
Yeah. And, you know, seeing that shot after the Mark Hamill milking space cow shot made me think, what color of milk does Kylo Ren have?
He has the traditional blue milk, I think.
Gross.
I think so.
Try to get that image out of your head, kids.
I loved also the parody to Hardware Wars, where they had the iron come down like a Star Wars ship, but then it was an ironing his clothes. The one that's looks like a spaceship, but it turns out to be an ironing his clothes. Yeah, that's a straight up parody, like a satirizing of Hardware Wars, which came out like right after A New Hope. It was like this big parody thing where people were like, you know, let's make a funny parody of Star Wars, except it's all like kitchen hardware.
I did not know about that. That's a fun
If you look up YouTube Hardware Wars, you'll see like a video thing of it, and it's really funny, like starring ham salad instead of Han Solo. Like it's great.
I didn't know about the whole hardware stores thing, so that's a clever homage, I guess. But like for the time being, up until this point, I was just like, this is a weird amount of world building in Star Wars where they're just pointing out like the most obscure details of the everyday life of a person in this universe. And it's like shot in a really weird way, and it's like the literal scene transition from like an on-planet like shot or whatever. And I'm just like, man, this is probably the weirdest choice in the whole movie so far.
Next thing you know, episode 9, it's going to be like a washroom scene, like Star Wars washroom. Like, just watch. Yeah. Just wait and see. It'll happen. Actually, you know what? That's probably what's going to be in the Han Solo movie. It's going to be a washroom scene, I bet.
Yeah, there's going to be a shot of like all these rocks crumbling and falling on Rey, and then it cuts to like some guy pulling his pants up as he exits the bathroom. It's just like, what are you implying there?
Oh my gosh. It's great. I want that scene.
Dude,
now.
We should not direct Star Wars. So many people would be so mad at us.
They would be very mad at some of the choices I would want to make with Star Wars. Then again, a lot of people were very mad at the choices Ryan made with Star Wars, and he's a huge fan, so...
So I think in a lot of ways, like, of the 3 new movies that are out so far, of like The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and this movie, The Last Jedi, I would say this is probably the best one of those 3. Just because I like its ambition once again. I think its good choices are legitimately good, and its bad choices, even though they're bad, they're ungodly entertaining. Like, they're funny. So
and even though they're bad, they're not like distractingly bad. They don't like, they might pull you out of the movie for like a hot minute, but then you'll get right back into it. So,
that's true.
At least I find.
Where would you rank this movie in the overall Star Wars series?
That's what I've been trying to think about for like the last few weeks when I saw them, and I'm like, I don't know where I'd put it, and I think as of current, and obviously might change, but I think it's my number 3, with Empire Strikes Back still being number 1. I mean, lightning only strikes once.
Yeah.
I've already come to terms many years ago that like nothing's going to really beat that. And then A New Hope after that. And then this one is 3rd. I think, and then probably Return of the Jedi fourth, then Revenge of the Sith, then Phantom Menace. Well, actually, I forgot to include Rogue One, but those are just the saga movies. Rogue One, I don't know where it would fit in there, but probably after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, for sure. I think that sounds reasonable, and I think like that's where most people are right now. So, yeah, we brought up, or rather, I brought up a couple of movies and shows that I saw earlier in the year, and we didn't necessarily see a lot of the same stuff, but, like, if you want to give recommendations as to
So you said you saw Loving Vincent, right?
I have not yet, but I want to so bad.
Man, I saw it. I've seen it. I know I didn't see it twice, but I saw it once, at least. Almost saw it twice. It was, oh, man, it's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
I had the chance to see it too. Like it's playing at like this theater in Kensington right now, but like I don't know. I think we decided to do like something else, like the guy I was hanging out with. Yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list, along with what's the new Wes Anderson movie coming out? Isle of Dogs.
Isle of Dogs, right? Right. I saw another trailer of that when I watched Shape of Water couple days ago.
What would you say is like your biggest recommendation for this year?
By far, I can tell you my favorite movie of the year if you want.
Sure.
I'm gonna be creating a top 10 favorite movies list fairly soon. I'm posting that, but my favorite movie, and spoiling it, is Blade Runner 2049.
Right, I should have seen that coming, to be honest. Yeah.
By and far, it is just so beautiful. It's just such a great film, and I was just watching it, especially on the big screen in IMAX. I was just in awe every second. I couldn't. My eyes were glued to the screen, and it's been very long since a movie has kept me that engaged. And I'm hyping it up a lot, but like it's also one of those. It's finally a big budget adult science fiction film that, you know, it treats its material seriously, and it feels like a true sequel. It's not a reboot, right? So, and the themes it presents and all the ideas, it keeps you thinking for a long time after you've seen the movie about all sorts of ideas, and it still, like, it answers some questions, but still leaves some important ones as a mystery, which I think is very, very important. To the identity of the film. And yeah, I've told some people before, but basically if Roger Deakins, who does the cinematography for this film, if he doesn't win an Oscar, I don't know. Don't know. I might boycott the Oscars if he doesn't win, because
I was thinking about Oscars like a lot, like especially when it comes to like Blade Runner 2049, because there's obviously going to be like a Best Special Effects award, and we were talking about how the award is going to go to either Blade Runner or Elysian or something, or whatever it's called. Valerian. What? Why am I thinking Elysian?
Elysium. That was a movie that what's his name did. The same guy who did District 9 did.
Okay.
A few years ago.
That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah, but you know.
Yeah. No. I still you know, if Blade Runner's in that category, I would still root for that, because it merges. It's not just CGI, but it also merges a lot of practical effects and a lot of miniatures and stuff, like the classic did. So it's really, really cool stuff.
Yeah. It's too bad neither of those movies did particularly well in the box office, but
yeah, but I feel like maybe Blade Runner will last longer. Like, I feel like people are more likely to buy DVDs of that than Valerian, at least in my opinion. I'll definitely want to, because it's not just the world building, and the world is amazing as well, but it's also the characters are all really, really strong, and you sympathize with a lot of them, except for maybe Jared Leto's character, which is strange.
Because he's Jared Leto?
Because he's Jared Leto. He's admittedly the strangest part of that movie, but he doesn't do like a bad job. It's just weird. It fits his character, but it's weird.
Have you heard news about that new Blade Runner anime that's been in development, and it's going to be made by the director of Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo?
No, that sounds amazing.
It looks amazing too. I've seen there's not too much about it out yet. There's just been some like animated footage here and there, and it looks amazing for sure. And that's something I definitely want to check out, because I'm a huge fan of Cowboy Bebop. So
yeah, I would love a series like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just everything about that world and that environment and those themes about it's still relevant today, which is what surprised me the most. It was like, okay, how do you, like, this is something that's been talked about so often, the idea of what is being human, and what is, versus a robot, replicant, but they find new avenues for it, which is really impressive. So yeah, I have to give the director Denis Villeneuve, who did Arrival last year, I gotta give him props. He's killing it with the movies he's been doing.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard lots of good things about him, definitely, just floating around.
So what was your favorite movie?
It's a bit of a toss-up. I should mention, before I go into it, that I am an animator, and therefore I have an animation bias.
Of course. No, it's fine. I'm a science fiction writer as well, so I have my bias, right?
Yeah, for sure. As far as animation goes, this is very uninformed, unfortunately, because there's so much good animation I didn't see because I've been working on my own stuff this year. I haven't seen Don Hertzfeldt's new film. I haven't seen Loving Vincent. I haven't seen Breadwinner, that new movie by Cartoon Saloon.
I heard about that.
Yeah, so there's so much shit on my bucket list, but what I did see was Coco, and that was amazing. That was definitely my favorite Pixar movie, tied with The Incredibles now, because...
oh, wow.
Yeah, I like them for different reasons, though. The Incredibles is more tightly written, and it's a better comedy. But Coco is more emotionally investing, and it's more aesthetically pleasing. It's stunning. Absolutely stunning. And I just like it a lot, and its last scene makes everyone cry super hard. So,
So I bring tissues when I go to the theater?
Dude, you should probably. I shouldn't spoil anything, but I feel like my family, for one particular reason, identifies with the ending a lot, and I'll just leave it at that. And Diego, when you come back from it, I'll go in more into detail about that. But in the interest of not spoiling anything, I want to avoid talking about it too much.
I've listened to some of the music of the movie. That's the only thing, and I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I think my favorite live action movie that I've seen this year is Baby Driver.
That's a great movie.
Oh, it's so freaking fantastic. I mean, it's a little bit awkward after the fact because Kevin Spacey, but other than that,
but he's not. He's just like a supporting character. I don't let the fact that happened hinder my enjoyment for that movie. It sucks, yes, but yeah, I still think the movie's amazing, right?
I'm kind of the same way, because I managed to separate the person from the artist a lot, because just because they are a certain way and they're a scumbag, that doesn't change the quality of the products that they made, in my opinion. I still like Bill Cosby's stand-up, and Louis C.K.'s stand-up for that matter, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to endorse the person, so,
I mean, I still liked Casey Affleck's performance in Manchester by the Sea, despite all the craziness. I don't like him as a person, but I thought his performance was still very good.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But Baby Driver was so freaking good. It had some of the best stunt choreography I've seen in a while. I liked the character of Baby a lot. I thought he was really cool and soft-spoken, but super slick. I like the way the movie was edited. It's Edgar Wright. He always has phenomenal editing.
Yeah.
And yeah, overall it was probably the most fun ride I saw this year, for sure.
Super fun movie.
Yeah.
It really, especially once you hit that halfway point when that thing happens, if you know what I mean, and the music really kicks in and it starts going high speed, right? That's when it's just full throttle. Yeah. It's great. Great fun.
One minor complaint that I had about the movie was I feel like sometimes character motivations are either they either don't have enough depth or they kind of come out of nowhere. Spoiler territory for Baby Driver, just giving you a heads up. One thing I didn't like about it was I feel like Kevin Spacey's character turned to Baby's side a little bit out of nowhere. I know his justification is that he was in love once, and because of that, he sympathizes with a couple. But that just makes me think, is that it? Is that your only gain in any of this? Because, for 3/4 of the movie, you were this manipulative jerk off.
Yeah, it does come out a little bit out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But then he's also kind of killed right out of nowhere too, right?
Yeah, I thought like he
so
was going to be
quickly.
the final villain, but like this is another movie that plays
No,
with
but
your
I really
expectations a
liked,
lot.
but I really liked that John Hamm ended up being the bad guy because I really like John Hamm. He's cool.
He is cool. Is that the guy who plays
Yeah.
the Punisher?
No, that's John Bernthal,
Hmm.
who's also a great actor. But John Hamm, he was in Mad Men. He's like the title character in Mad Men. I don't know if you ever saw that show.
My brother's a big fan of it, but
Anyway, yeah, he's the title character there. Yeah. No, John Bernthal plays the Punisher, and I still have to see the Punisher series. That reminds me. What other movies have you really liked and seen?
the only other thing I can think of at the moment is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I enjoyed quite a bit.
I saw that one too, yeah. That was pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised, considering I was going into it going, it's a sequel, it's probably not going to be as good as the first one.
Dude, like,
And I was pleasantly surprised.
in all honesty, like, I apologize for how naive this may sound, but I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy is going to become, like, a new classic series for our generation in the same way that Star Wars became a classic or Indiana Jones became a classic. Because, for one thing, it's one of the few things out there of its generation that feels really original in a time where everything is like a remake or a reboot of something we already saw. I know it's based on a comic book, but it was like a comic book nobody heard of at the time. And the other thing is like, it has so much more personality than the other Marvel movies right now, in my opinion. Like, it just has its humor that's all its own. It has its soundtrack that I can't get out of my head whenever I listen to it. It has like a different kind of outlook that the other Marvel movies don't have, and it works even though it really shouldn't. Like again, spoilers. There's a scene in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 where like there's a huge space battle happening in the background, but like the whole focus of the scene is whether or not Star-Lord can find Rocket some duct tape. And like it has that kind of focus that like in any other movie would be freaking stupid, but it's so funny and well executed that like you totally buy it. And I don't know, like the more I think about Guardians of the Galaxy, the more it grows on me.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it too, and I found it had a lot more character than I was expecting. Because the humor, I was like, that's something I expect from the first one. But there was a lot of really good, like, maybe not like super dramatic, but like heartfelt, like emotional. Like I was, if we're talking about spoilers, the character who dies, like that was a really good death scene. Like that was oh man, kind of heart-wrenching a little bit.
Yeah, and there's lots of good dialogue in this movie too. Like that part where he goes, "He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy." I was just like, oh.
Yeah. Speaking the truth,
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. No, I thought it was really cleverly made movie. And while I know some people argue the idea that, like, it doesn't really affect much of the Marvel cinematic universe at all, and I'm like, yeah, that's true. But I don't think I need that out of my Marvel movie. I
You
just
know what?
need it to have a good time.
You know what? That was the major reason I saw this, because to give a little bit of backstory, I'm hugely, hugely behind on the Marvel movies, and I'm intimidated to get back into it because I feel like I have like an immense amount of catching up to do. And I honestly kind of hate movies that do that because I want to be entertained. I don't want to do my homework. You know what I mean? Like... And the reason why I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was because it was the movie that didn't make me feel intimidated by how much I missed out. It made me think, no matter how much I missed out on all the other movies, I'm going to enjoy this, and I don't need to see those other ones in order to. And I appreciated that a lot more, so... Yeah.
That's totally understandable because it's hard to keep up with all of them because there are a lot.
And they're all like interconnected and everything, and I'm just like, I don't know. It just because of how far behind I am, I just think like it's a little too overwhelming. And also, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, like, both those movies are my favorite in the Marvel franchise, like, right now, because, again, they have the most personality, they have the most distinction from everything else, and, like, I feel like James Gunn is, like, some sort of weird magician, because, like, he takes these decisions that really shouldn't work, and he pulls them off flawlessly. Like, in a franchise where there's a 6-member superhero team where 4 of those 6 members have their own movie to establish their own personalities. He takes 5 of the most obscure Marvel characters possible, and he makes them all equally likable to those characters, if not more. And not only that, but, like, he also makes, like, the most memorable villains in the Marvel franchise so far. Like, in a franchise that's so criticized for having weak villains that just nobody likes, Ego the Living fucking Planet is one of them, is like one of the better ones. He's probably the best one, to be honest.
But that's not saying much, really.
I liked Kurt Russell a lot in this movie, and I'm just like, how do you make Ego the Living Planet the best Marvel villain? How do you do that, James Gunn? Like,
I mean, I have no idea.
It's so weird. But, you know, I that's why I like it so much. It's like, I super admire James Gunn for making weird decisions work.
I think it's definitely done really well in that way.
For sure.
Did you, speaking of superhero, like, so you probably weren't catching up on the Marvel, but did you see Wonder Woman or Logan or some of those other ones? Or?
No, that's one of the downsides
Lego
to
Batman.
being in the position that I'm in, man. Like, I just don't have the time, and like, and only once in a while will I have the liberty of doing that kind of stuff. I'm not particularly interested in the DC universe anyway, because every movie thus far has been, if not bad, very problematic. And honestly, they just don't look interesting enough to me anyway, so.
Wonder Woman is pretty good, I think.
I've heard.
Outside of like outside of the last 15 minutes, which isn't very good, but everything else with the movie is very, very good.
All I saw in Wonder Woman was like that admittedly awkward shot of like young Diana like leaping through the air, and like the green screen behind her is like super bad. Like she's very obviously just standing in place and waving her arms. It's a child. You can't make them perform like big stunts like that. Come on.
I saw War for the Planet of the Apes was really good end to that trilogy. I saw Dunkirk, good Christopher Nolan film, considering Christopher Nolan.
You have something against the Chris?
He sometimes he's created his own cliches, but what I really like about this film is he goes against his own cliches. It doesn't feel like a normal Christopher Nolan film. Like, there are still some of those Nolan-isms, but it also feels quite different. And it also is not a typical movie, it's more like an experience. As you see these soldiers, like you see the land, air, and sea of this event, which is really cool.
Yeah. After hearing that description, I'm definitely more inclined to check it out now, because after the last Christopher Nolan movie I watched was The Dark Knight Rises, which was like the goofiest, most Christopher Nolan stereotype movie ever.
No, yeah, it's definitely not like that at all. It's more, I think it's done much better. And the best scenes are definitely the air scenes, where you see the pilots doing dogfighting that looks like real dogfighting. It's really, really cool. Mother was another one I saw that I really liked, but I also know is very controversial. Mostly because like some people don't like it because it is kind of heavy-handed with its themes, but I still really liked it. And I think Darren Aronofsky, he's got a strange mind as a director and writer, but I like his mind.
For sure, man.
He's got some cool stuff. Thor, I saw Thor Ragnarok, which was fun, and Spider-Man I saw.
Overall, I'd say like 2017 was a pretty good year for movies. Like a lot of what came out this year was pretty solid.
I feel like entertainment in general was very, very strong this year. Like,
yeah,
I thought movies were really good. I thought video games generally were really, really good. There were some.
Have you played Cuphead?
I have not played Cuphead. I have only seen
so
Cuphead.
Good.
I I've watched a playthrough of Cuphead, so because I'm kind of scared to even play it because I'm like, it seems so hard. But I like watching the animation, so I've watched people play it.
Yeah.
It looks really, really pretty.
Take it from somebody who is not very good at run and gun type of games at all. It is difficult, make no mistake, but it's not difficult in a frustrating way. It's...
I'm like, sure, but I don't know. I've got so much.
Like, in my opinion, like, the fact that it's so well polished in its visuals and it's just generally so charming helps the anger a little bit, in my opinion. Because it helps me calm down, like, faster. And the other thing is, like, it's not due to, like, unfair properties like sloppy controls or, like, most of the time situations where there's no way to win. Like, every death teaches you something, and as long as you get the patterns down, you'll be able to get past to some bosses. Like, I got past the frog boss without getting hit when I beat it, so... Yeah.
Lots of stuff that came out that was good. And then TV, I think there was some pretty good TV that came out this year. Oh yeah, there was second season of Stranger Things I thought was really, really good. I liked that a lot. Yeah, generally pretty good year. Compared to last year especially, very, very good.
Oh yeah, well 2016 just sucked on every level, let's be honest. 2017 overall was a pretty solid year when it comes to entertainment. Is there any newly announced stuff that hasn't come out yet that's possibly coming out in 2018 that you're excited for?
Okay, my top anticipated movie of 2018 is Annihilation. It's by the same guy who wrote and directed Ex Machina. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. But I really love that movie. It's another adult science fiction movie that was my favorite movie of, I think it came out in 2015. Alex Garland, who wrote and directed it. And so, yeah, very, very excited. It's very strange and weird, and it has a lot of actors I like, so we'll see. We'll see what, I hope it's good. And then apparently, apparently there's a new Cloverfield movie coming out next year, which I'm excited for, because I like that franchise. And then, I don't know what other movies I'm excited for, but I know a lot of people are excited for the new Avengers, and I'm like, we'll see.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. What about you?
So the top three that come to my mind, the first one being Isle of Dogs, because...
oh, right. I forgot that movie is coming out next year. That's pretty exciting.
Because I loved Fantastic Mr. Fox to death. It's easily in my top 10 favorite animated movies ever.
Wow. Okay.
Speaking of, like, that kind of category, there's also a new movie coming out, I think, in 2018, but I'll have to double check that. It's called, it's something to do with wolves. I think it's Wolf Hunter, but anyway.
Oh, is it like the alpha one?
No.
Or is it one that's like about
I'm looking it up right now. It's a movie by Cartoon Saloon, which, for all intents and purposes, is like the Irish Studio Ghibli. They made movies like Secret of Kells, which was really good, and Wolf Walkers is what it's called. But anyway, they made Secret of Kells, which is really good, and Song of the Sea is my favorite movie of all time. So they have a new movie coming out. It's very typical kind of like Cartoon Saloon aesthetics, where it's very immersed in like Celtic, Irish imagery, where it looks like a lot of their artwork. And it looks absolutely incredible.
What is it called again?
Wolf Walkers.
Walkers. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So there's that. And the other thing, you may have seen some footage of this, Diego.
Whoa, this looks so cool. Sorry, the Wolf Walkers.
I'll go ahead and give you a moment to enjoy that.
Oh man, those look cool. Yeah. I really like that. Anyway, continue.
I'm going to take your talking out of context and...
No, don't.
Okay. Anyway, the third movie, you may have seen footage of this, Diego. There's a new movie by Sony Animation. Sounds better than it. It's better than it sounds. It's
keep
an
going.
Adaptation of the Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Oh yes, I saw that.
Yeah, it looks really good. I'm really digging the unique art style. I love how bright and colorful it is. The kind of stiff, almost stop-motion-esque kind of animation threw me off, especially because, like, it's 2D, but it's so well-shaded that, like, you could be convinced that it's 3D. It looks kind of off-putting to me, but, like, I'm willing to wait until it comes out for for like a full opinion on that. But overall, it looks fantastic. So, yeah, those are my 3 big ones.
Of any other movie, Incredibles 2, are you excited for?
Oh, dude, I get so hyped every time
year,
that trailer comes up. Because this is the only Pixar sequel that
should have been created.
Yeah, this is the only Pixar sequel that should exist. I don't need to see fucking Cars 4. I don't need to see, like, what happens to Mike Wazowski before college or any of that shit. Like, I want to see what happened to this family after the events of the first movie. This is the only premise that has leeway for more storytelling possibilities that are actually kind of interesting. I don't know why it took them this long, but anyway.
I'm a little afraid of it, just because I feel like the hype, because there's just so much hype around it, it might be disappointing. Like, what the product might be, but who knows? It could still be really good. So I still have faith in Brad Bird, but he also brought Tomorrowland, which wasn't a very good movie. So we'll see. Hopefully he does a good job. I have hope.
Brad Bird blends pretty well with animation, so I have high hopes. Yeah. And the other thing is, like, I've been reading articles about it, and apparently, according to an interview with Brad Bird, the main focus is going to be on the mom as opposed to the dad, and apparently, like, one of the bigger dilemmas is, like, apparently it's going to be about her, like, wanting, like, to be more adventurous or something like that, and that's the only thing that's kind of off-putting to me, because I'm just like, didn't we do that with the dad? Didn't we, like... Wasn't the first movie all about, like, Bob's midlife crisis? If it's what I think it is, then why are we doing the same thing but for the mom now?
Yeah, it's strange. Okay, I want your opinion on 2 other movies.
Okay.
Being that they're animated movies. Okay, first, Early Man, the new stop-motion one by Aardman Animations.
It looks pretty good, yeah.
Yeah?
I'm a big fan of stop-motion, especially due to the fact that there's just not a lot of it anymore, so... For sure.
Do you think it'll be as good as some of their other films, though? Or do you think it's just kind of like, whatever?
I always kind of put those in a category of, like, nothing overly spectacular, but, like, it's a simple, kind of relaxing kind of good time, where it's just good, lighthearted British humor, and that's really all it has to be. So I don't see any reason why it would be disappointing.
So, that being said, I want to know your opinion on Sherlock Gnomes.
I think that trailer gave me cancer when I watched it, because I was just like, because I remember watching the trailer and they were doing something like, look, the ship's getting away or something, and then the one gnome says to the other one, no ship, Sherlock. And I remember sitting there in the theater like, I think a part of me literally just died. Like, I feel a general sadness that just won't go away. And and it comes back every time I think about that.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Like, I didn't think you could make a movie more disheartening than the Emoji Movie, but apparently they found a way.
Did you know that this is part of a series? This isn't even the first one. This is apparently a sequel to Romeo and Juliet.
I knew about that for a while, yeah. And I'm just like,
why?
What is the market for this? How many people are seeing your movie? Apparently it's enough people that it warrants a sequel.
I mean, I don't know. Like, apparently Paramount Animation has a lot of money.
And, like, apparently Johnny Depp's in it, which, like, man, talk about a fall from grace. Like, you were one of the most high-paid actors in Hollywood for a while, and now you're doing fucking Sherlock Gnomes. Like,
it's pretty sad.
Like, I feel like if I do watch Sherlock Gnomes and I see Johnny Depp's performance, I'll just have to watch Rango again to feel better, but...
Okay, I found another one. I was like, okay, what other animation movies are coming out next year? Wreck-It Ralph 2.
I don't know much about it, but, like, if it takes place on the internet, I have, like, this gut feeling that it's going to be a little too pandery. But, you know, I don't know enough about that movie to really have an opinion, so
yeah, they
we'll
haven't
see.
Released a trailer or anything yet, unfortunately. but
They did?
no, they haven't. I said.
Oh, they're keeping a lot in the dark, I think, on
Yeah.
purpose. So
Yeah, I hope it won't be too referencey. Like, oh look, this is this website or this thing, or I hope it'll.
we already
still
have
be
the
like,
Emoji Movie
yeah,
for that.
let's not. Also, I just realized that Frozen 2 is coming out in 2019. Oh my goodness.
Dude, I told you about the 20-minute Frozen short in front of Coco, right?
Yeah, you told me a little bit.
It's not really offensive. It's exactly what you would think you would get when you hear 20-minute Frozen Christmas special. It's exactly what you would expect, and I didn't care for it simply because I didn't care much for Frozen in the first place. But it's not nearly as bad as people make it out to be. The only reason it got such a hostile response was because it kind of felt like they didn't have enough confidence in Coco to carry itself, even though like Coco is like the best Pixar movie in years. So it's just kind of like a bitter thing, really. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the first episode of the Outtakes. I really enjoyed this one. Diego, thanks so much for doing this. I had a blast talking about all this stuff. We'll have to do it again sometime, man.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys enjoy this series, if you want us to keep coming back and put our own input on, recent media news or any of that sort of stuff, let us know. Just to do a small plug for myself, you can follow me on my YouTube channel at Tombo Cartoons, Twitter at TomJVanK, Tumblr, I run a blog called Scrawny Dutchman where I type up like little articles about film reviews and stuff. Diego, do you have anything you want to plug?
I have an Instagram. I guess I can plug that. My Instagram is Diego.Arciniega.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope to see you some other time.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Bye.